Alright, what is up? C-Rules here. So, here's a little tutorial slash kind of demonstration or whatever on how I made my pretty much one-to-one cover of the Mario Kart 64 Rainbow Road music. So, for starters, what I did was to make it sound exactly like it did in the game, I used instrument software that recreate each sound or piece of hardware that was used in the game, as well as some of the exact sample libraries that were used by Nintendo at the time. So I'm going to try to go step by step and explain this as easily as I can. So it all starts off with a MIDI file I imported that has all the notes for each part of the song. Now, when you import that directly into something like a music workstation like Mixcraft 9 Pro Studio is what I use right here, it's all going to be piano or whatever generic instrument. So what I have to do is I have to modify a lot of these tracks in order for it to sound exactly the way it would have on the game. So let's start with the very first part right here, and that is the iconic flute. I'm going to play that solo so you guys can hear it. Hear it right here. So here it goes. Try and turn that up a bit. So that's probably the sound everybody thinks of when they think of that version of Rainbow Road. So here's what I used. So for the main software I used, you got to have a sampler because these were done using sample CDs. This came from a CD called Sample Cell 2 by the now defunct company DigiDesign. This was a very popular library back in the 90s. A lot of music producers used it for stuff. And I was able to find a copy of it on the Internet Archive a long time ago. And so I just loaded up into Kontakt 5. I know we're up to like version 8 or 9 or so now, but I use a legacy version because I can import older sample libraries easier, especially off of old CDs that normally wouldn't be able to be read by my computer or a modern PC because they were designed to work on some proprietary piece of studio equipment from a company like Roland or Akai. And that was kind of the case with Sample Cell, as it was originally designed, I believe, for older Mac-based operating systems. But I was able to convert everything on over so it would work with a Windows computer. And through that, I was able to open it up here into Kontakt. And so this is a preset part of called Synth Pipes Flute Lyle. This is what I use right there. Is the name of the preset that was used. So there's that sound again. So then after that, we get to the next little sound. I'm going to skip that track because it's all to be part of one big thing that uses that same plugin / software. So next we're going to get to one of the more interesting parts of the track, and that's that little starry, spacey sound you hear throughout this part. This part right here. So to do that, that was done on, originally it was a much larger one, but this is the Korg Wavestation software as part of the Korg Legacy Collection. So these are software recreations of a bunch of old Korg synthesizers released over the last 30, 40 years or so. This particular one is from, replicates, of course, the Wavestation. Now, I believe Nintendo used a rack-mounted one instead of, like, the regular keyboard. But they're both basically the same thing. And these are all done with factory presets, by the way, all these sounds. They weren't, like, anything custom programmed or anything, if you can believe it. So here's the preset right here. X Now Split. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So it's like kind of two parts. You have a pad sound right here. So it sounds very spacey, very star-like. So again, let me play that individual track. I'm going to bring in the flute again, too, now. See? Then the next part is right here, and that is the strings. So the strings, they used a Roland JD 1080 ROM sampler or Rompler. Basically, it uses audio samples pre-programmed onto ROM chips built inside this box that you would mount onto a rack in the studio. Then you would just hook a keyboard up to it and boom, boom, boom. The preset used here is called Film Octaves. However, to make it sound a little bit more like it does on the game, because it sounded a little bit too cinematic on its own for my liking. So I messed with the equalization on it. Also added in a little bit of a compressor. I did the same thing with a couple other parts you're going to hear in a minute. But that's what made up this. So here it is with the other two sounds I mentioned already. Oh, no, wait, not that one yet. We're not ready for that one yet. Alright, so that's that part. The next is kind of a more interesting one, is the bass. Pretty important. I did use a little bit more compression on this just to kind of tighten it up and make it sound a little bit punchier on the final track. In fact, I'm also going to take off the effects for a minute. I had the reverb on to give it that echoey sound. So let me add in all the other stuff I mentioned, the flute. So now this one's a little bit complicated, as I couldn't actually find a plugin for the real synthesizer that was used on this that emulates that sound directly. Suppose it was like this weird, like, modified rack version of a Roland JD 800. Now, I have a Roland JD 800 plugin on here. It sounds excellent, but unfortunately the preset that was used in the game, Velocity Switch Bass, is not available on that version of that synth. And I don't think there's even a way that you can import presets from the original hardware onto it. So that was out of the picture. So I kind of, that's the one sound I sort of cheated. I used a Nintendo 64 sound font that had a bunch of sounds that were used in various Nintendo games from that time, including Mario Kart 64. And there you go, slap bass, boom, boom, boom. I added a couple more effects onto it to give it that sound, and boom. So then the rest of the 3 sounds in the game, starting with the organ, we're all done with the exact same piece of hardware. They use a Roland Sound Canvas SC88 Pro to do all those. Or it might have been an SC88. So I used Roland's own Sound Canvas emulation software. So Roland Sound Canvas was a series also of sound modules that were very, very popular. They did a whole bunch of them, but they all pretty much use the same family of presets. There are subtle differences on some versions, but this one's got the majority of them. And what's nice is you can also pretty much switch between, you know, okay, do I want it to be the version off of the SC55, the SC88, SC88 Pro, SC8820. And yeah, these are the exact same samples that were used on the hardware, but converted for software use, officially from Roland too, which is pretty cool. This is part of a collection, same thing with the one I use right here. We're part of the collection I have called Roland Cloud, which is a whole bunch of different pieces of Roland hardware and samples. If you do a lot of music production, it's something definitely worth looking into. So now let me add in the flute, the bass, and the strings again. See, now it's starting to really sound like Rainbow Road. And now this is without any other effects. See, with the effects, you have a little bit more compression. So that's why it sounds a little bit punchier and a little bit clearer. So a lot of the final track will sound like a water. Like as if you're listening to a CD of one of the original master tracks without the compression that a Nintendo 64 cartridge would have to deal with. So then next after that, we get to the other part that is done on the sound canvas. And that is the guitar that comes up right in the middle. So once again, Roland Sound Canvas, overdrive guitar. The organ, that was just a drawbar organ, supposed to be like a Hammond or something, they made it sound like. So here's with the reverb. So see how now it's got that echoey effect? That's what reverb does. And here I am laying it with the flutes. I'm just going to bring it over to Nelson again. Different out effects again. And then the last piece we have is, of course, the drums. I know you're probably waiting for those, weren't you? Once again, Roland Sound Canvas, just a preset called Room Percussion. That's without the effects. Here's with. See, now it sounds a little spacey with that echo. You can even hear like the little drum roll in the background right there. A little bit clearer. And so now that, here's everything together once again. There you go. That is how I made a perfect, pretty much one-to-one recreation of the Mario Kart 64 Rainbow Road theme. I'll have a couple links in the description. One will be to my SoundCloud page where you can hear the entire song. And then the other will be to the Google spreadsheet that I use for reference of all the actual hardware and presets that were used by Nintendo for the game, as well as several other Mario Kart games. And it also has all the other sounds for songs in the game. So I'll have a link for that in the description. Might even have it pop up in the video at some point. So hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Just be sure to leave a like. See you rolls out.